There we go. It's 6 o'clock and 20 seconds on this Wednesday, January 17th. This is Up North News Radio. I'm Pat Kreitlow. Thanks for being here along the Civic Media Radio Network and all the places where this live video feed can be seen later on, which is probably why you're seeing this. And you're going, where's the show? It's coming. 6:06, it gets started after news and commercials. We'll talk about the Republican senators firing another one of Governor Tony Evers' appointees. State Senator Jeff Smith will be our guest to talk about that and several other subjects. We'll talk to Melissa Baldoff about it as well. Plus, she'll be part of our climate check report as we meet somebody from Clean, Wisconsin, and talk about how there are critics who say we're all moving too fast toward this green economy. No, we're not moving fast enough. And we're going to talk all about that as well. Brittany Merlot with the forecast. Todd Allbaugh to wrap things up, all just ahead in just under 5 minutes from now. Talk to you soon.
Correspondent Scott McFarland.
The White House had requested tens of billions of dollars in aid for Ukraine and aid for Israel. And quite simply, that aid request has stalled. There's been gridlock between congressional Republicans and Democratic negotiators. Republicans want new U.S. immigration law, a real thorny issue, before approving Ukraine aid. And House Republicans insisted on cuts to the IRS to pay for Israel.
Secretary of State Antony Blinken speaking openly about the Israel-Hamas war at the World Economic Forum in Davos today.
For me, I think for so many of us, what we're seeing every single day in Gaza, it's gut-wrenching.
A shipment of medicine intended for dozens of hostages held by Hamas is en route to Gaza, the delivery arranged by France and Qatar. Rescue workers say at least 15 people have been killed in an explosion at a fireworks factory in Thailand. Vicki Barker is at the foreign desk.
Shaky phone footage shows people running from the scene as explosions rock the road. Gray smoke billows into the sky. Yellow flames lick at the grass and trees. One man is seen running, holding a small girl.
That $35 you're hit with when you spend more than you have in your bank account could go away. Part of it, if the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau gets its way. The agency is proposing a rule to limit overdraft fees to between $3 and $14. Dow futures off 154. This is CBS News.
Think O'Reilly Auto Parts for all your car care needs. Get the parts and service you need fast from the professional parts people at O'Reilly Auto Parts.
This is your local Civic Media radio station. Want to hear even more? Anytime? Find all of it at civicmedia.us.
For Civic Media News, I'm Nate Wuggehout. Here's what Wisconsin needs to know. Senate Republicans voted to fire another one of Governor Evers' appointees Tuesday, this time Tyler Huebner of the state's Public Service Commission. Evers is appointing Christy Neto to take his place. Senate Republicans have fired 8 of Evers' appointees since last fall. The keynote speaker at this year's State of Wisconsin Martin Luther King Day celebration says he wants the promise of justice one day to happen now.
It is ridiculous that people are attacking diversity, equity, and inclusion, but refuse to implement laws to remove guns from the hands of those who continue to shoot innocent children in schools, in malls, and even in faith places.
The Reverend Marcus Allen is a Baptist minister in Madison. I'm Nate Wuggehout, Civic Media News.
The Badgers lose on the road. Hi, I'm Mike Clemens with sports. The Wisconsin Badgers fall to the Nittany Lions at Penn State. Matt LePay.
With 0.4 of a second left, they'll get it into Baldwin. It's over. Penn State, a 4-point winner here at the Bryce Jordan Center as the students make their way onto the floor here in State College.
The final 87-83. The Badgers got into foul trouble early. Head coach Greg Gard.
4 times we fouled jump shooters, and we hadn't done that in a while. I thought we had kind of moved past that.
So now the Badgers are 13-4. They host Indiana Friday night. NFL, the Packers installing the game plan for Saturday night's game against the 49ers. Sometimes teams go a day early when playing games on the West Coast, but Matt LaFleur declined.
It's something we talked about, but we figured it'd be best to stay in our normal routine. It's a short week anyways, has its own set of challenges, and just felt like it was best for us to stay in as normal as a routine as possible.
With sports, I'm Mike Clemens.
The Civic Media network of radio stations across Wisconsin. It's your hometown radio. Refreshed.
The coldest of the cold might be out of here, but it is still going to be cold today, partly to mostly cloudy, high of 15, but that wind chill below zero most of the day. Tonight, a few flurries down to 7 above. Tomorrow, mostly cloudy. Afternoon, light snow, 17. More light snow tomorrow night with accumulation around an inch. I'm meteorologist Sean Cable. Outside now, 4 below zero.
The Civic Media Network of radio stations across Wisconsin. It's your hometown radio. Refreshed. Broadcasting to Waukesha at 101.
All across Wisconsin from Civic Media, this is Up North News Radio. Now, live from our Lake Wissota studio, here's the founding editor of Up North News, Pat Brightlow.
Oh, hey there, Wisconsin. Good morning. It's 6:06 on this Wednesday morning, January 17th. It's another beautiful, cold, but beautiful day to have you here up north, live from Lake Wissota, from wherever you're listening across the Civic Media Radio Network. Let me turn some knobs and switches here so I can hear everything just right. There you go. You might be listening through the Civic Media app or somewhere on social media. I know at least somebody is here as I go over to the Facebook comments. And let's see, it's Curtis saying good morning from the North Woods of Eagle River, Wisconsin. Curtis, thank you very much. And thanks for chiming in. You can do the same here on the Facebook pages for Civic Media or for Up North News. Put a comment there. We may throw it up on screen. Of course, you can always reach us as well at 844-967-2789. And I know what the early morning is like. There's not the fireworks of the middle of the day when, calls are pouring in to Todd Allbaugh or to Matt Flynn or anybody. It's early. We're just getting going. You're maybe not wanting to dial the phone and going, I want to have a talk on live radio statewide at this hour when my voice might crack and I haven't had my coffee yet, but you still have an opinion on something or you have a question about something. Well, that same number can be used for a text, and we'd love to get a text from you as well at 844-967-2789. Either just throw us a good morning and tell us where you're listening from, or just ask us a question or a comment. You can also do that through the Civic Media app. You should really feel free to download that and listen. And for example, if you're in your car commuting, you can put that through the Bluetooth in your car and take us along in case you don't have a Civic Media radio station handy. So I've got a question for you to get this Wednesday morning started. Is there anybody out there who doesn't think Donald Trump is still inspiring others to undermine American democracy? I mean, the latest example of it happened just yesterday in the state capitol building of the state of Wisconsin in Madison. And we'll tell you more about that and just ask you again to consider that whether Donald Trump wins or loses this year, do we think that his brand of undermining democracy is going to go away? I mean, even if he loses, it's still going to inspire some people to say, well, this is a movement that must go on. And like I said, it's a movement that we see in our own Wisconsin legislature. Details coming up in just a bit because, a slow motion putsch is still a putsch. And so we'll talk to State Senator Jeff Smith from Eau Claire in our second hour today about what's happening in the legislature. He also is one of the authors of a bill to reform how voting is done in Wisconsin. It's something called ranked choice voting and Final Five primaries. We've talked about it briefly, but we finally get to have Senator Smith on to explain it in more detail. And again, I'm not in any way, shape, or form selling it as, the be-all and end-all of voting reform, but it might be something that voters find useful, especially if they want to break the stranglehold of the two-party system and be able to vote for maybe a couple of different people, but just rank them. It doesn't mean they have to vote for all Democrats or all Republicans. They might see the occasional person from the other side of the aisle and say, I think this person might be worth checking out. so we'll talk to Senator Smith about that. We'll also talk to Melissa Baldoff. Of course, she's part of our Wednesday Climate Check, and she will be joining us along with Chelsea Chandler from Clean Wisconsin. But first, Melissa and I will talk in a few minutes here again about legislative Republicans firing another one of Governor Tony Evers' appointees, this one on the Public Service Commission. We'll visit with Melissa Kaye from Locally Grown Radio in Wisconsin Rapids. She'll be part of our daily history lesson and musical memories. We'll talk to Todd Allbaugh and find out what's coming up on his show later today. And we'll talk to Jimmy Koska, who we've frequently talked to in the vein of high school sports, but he is also a school board member in his community, and he is part of several school board folks and educators who are heading toward Milwaukee for the Wisconsin Association of School Boards annual conference, and we'll find out from a school board member perspective what kinds of issues they will be discussing on this still bone-chilling Wednesday morning. Temperatures are either side of 0 degrees Fahrenheit right now. In Chippewa Falls here on Lake Wissota, it's 2 above. Hayward's at 5 above. Park Falls, you done run out of degrees. You're at 0 right now. So is Green Bay. Wausau is at 4 below. La Crosse 2 below. Wisconsin Rapids 4 below 0 right now. Oshkosh -1. Madison 1 above. And in Waukesha right now, it is 6 degrees below 0, which is also where we find Greg Bach, who on the first day back from vacation yesterday, as he gives us the traditional Ed McMahon salute. You learned that from yes, with the twirl of the hand, the twirl of the wrist, as you will. Who yesterday, bright-eyed and bushy-tailed, because you kind of got a little adrenaline coming back from vacation and ready to get at it. And then that second day back's a little rougher. Like, oh, this is what we're doing again. Yeah, exactly. But here you are. Here you are.
Here I am. And Waukesha winning it with the coldest temperature. Boom. What's that?
That's happened. Yeah, that's happened a couple of times here lately. I mean, yesterday was one of those days where Fairbanks, Alaska was warmer than most of the lower 48 as, a big old pile of cold air slid down and has just made life really adventurous for us this week.
Yeah. Stepped into a snowbank for the second day in a row and working shootless right now because my feet are freezing.
Ooh, yes. Yikes.
I think I might bring a pair of slippers.
There's nothing wrong with that if that's where you're going to be all the time. And I found a really great pair. I don't remember the brand name. I saw that my brother-in-law had it. They're just a little bit more sturdy. They're I guess they're shoes, but they're more like slippers. And but you can just keep those indoors there, and that way you're not walking around in your wet stocking feet all the time.
Right. Exactly. You get it.
Yeah, I've been in radio stations many a time. You don't want to be walking around barefoot in some of those places here. Our daily newsletter at Up North News comes out every morning, bright and early, and Christina Laurie puts that together. You can sign up for it over at UpNorthNewsWI.com. One of the stories in today's edition is about how a Wisconsin-based chain of brew pubs now has a brewery open in Japan. It's something that the Great Dane Brewery, based in the Madison area, has been pursuing for some time and then made it come true. So Christina's got that story and much more in our newsletter. You can, again, go to UpNorthNewsWI.com and take a look at it there. Let's see. Let's take a quick look at sports here at 6:14 because the Wisconsin Badger men's basketball team was upset last night while in Penn State. The 11th-ranked Badgers never really got on track and lost to the Nittany Lions 87-83. So Penn State knocked off the last unbeaten team in the Big Ten. The Badgers are now 5-1 on the season. Next, they will host Indiana, and that will be at the Kohl Center on Friday night. The Badger women's basketball team, they were thumped by Iowa, the number 2 team in the nation, 96-50. Of course, Iowa has the great Caitlin Clark, who scored 32 points and passed Brittany Griner to move into 4th place all-time for NCAA Division I women's basketball scoring. The Badger women are now 1-6, and they will host the Minnesota Gophers next week, Tuesday. The Milwaukee Bucks, they play tonight. That'll be in Cleveland against the Cavaliers. And you can catch Bucks basketball on several Civic Media radio stations, including Oshkosh Air Support, News from the Center in Richland Center, Lake Air in Amory, WRJN in Racine, and 98Q Country in Park Falls. As the Bucks continue a road trip, they won't be back home now for another, I think they're back home a week from tonight, as they've got a few games on the road here. And of course, the Packers continue to prepare for the 49ers. That again is a Saturday night game, 7:15. Fox has it on TV, but you can catch it on Civic Media radio stations, including WRCO, Radio from the Center in Richland Center, WRJN in Racine, and 98Q Country WCQM in Park Falls to catch a game that, again, now somebody had said, Greg, they're tired of hearing the phrase house money. I still think it's a great phrase for this, that the Packers got nothing to lose. I mean, the expectations are low. The team is young. And they're like, if I hear that term, playing with house money, one more time, well, give me a better expression then, because it's just a way of saying, you know what, just get in there and play it, and let's see what happens.
And also, why does it bother you so much?
Well, I mean, I can see if you hear something enough times, but I haven't heard enough times yet, because I think it's apt in this situation. What's been especially delicious though is as I scroll through TikTok, which unfortunately I'm doing way too often these days, but the clips, first there were the clips where people juxtapose what some of the talking heads in sports were saying. A couple of months ago, oh, Jordan Love is a bust. Oh, Jordan Love is not going to last. Jordan Love this, and hearing them after the game going, that Jordan Love, he's the real deal, And what you're not seeing in those clips is them saying, boy, did I get that wrong. Boy, do I stink,
They never do that. They're like politicians in that sense. They've just like, I'm Jordan Love. I'm on the Love train. Love it. This kid's going to be the next franchise player.
Do you know who's been really happy about all of this? TV meteorologists. There's one here in the Chippewa Valley who put up, and this was delicious because this has happened at least 3 different times this year, in the Packers' first game against the Bears, the Thanksgiving game against the Lions, and then this past weekend. You can get a freeze frame, a screen grab from these pregame shows where they ask everybody to make their picks, and all across the screen, there's not a single Packer logo. They all picked the Bears in week 1. They all picked the Lions on Thanksgiving. They all picked the Cowboys. And he put up a picture of a screen grab of all those players, of all those analysts, those talking heads, with the Dallas Star below them. And the caption is, "Don't tell me whether people are the only ones who keep their job, even if they get their guesses wrong." And he's absolutely right. It's not just the weather people. It's these goofballs who, again, have been writing off the Packers all year, which, again, understandable, young, but it just makes it that much better, when
Plus,
we get
those guys also, I'm sorry, I don't care what sport you're talking about. Everyone likes to poo-poo on Wisconsin teams. Mm-hmm. We're never properly respected. And then when it comes time for it, they're like, I guess they're pretty good.
Yeah, it is. It's Wisconsin against everybody. That's how it works here. That's the attitude we're taking into Saturday night. We'll pause here, and then when we come back, we'll unpack some of the news, including the latest out of the state capitol, the continued efforts to undermine the will of the voters in Wisconsin. Wherever you're listening across Wisconsin on this nice Wednesday morning, you're live from Lake Wissota up north here on a Wednesday on Up North News Radio. Back in a bit.
WAUK.
Hi, I'm Emily from Weikert Realtors Lake Point in Madison. Home ownership is a big deal, and so is taking the leap into the buying or selling of any property. The Weikert team gets that, and our job is to help you navigate the sales process and provide smooth sailing. You have questions, we have answers. You have worries, we have solutions. Let us open the door to your future home. Weikert Realtors Lake Point, 608-721-8002, 2045 Atwood Avenue. Find more info at weikert-lakepoint.com.
Less calories and fat, and oh so delicious. It's what every light bread wants to be. Leave it to the bakers of Village Hearth to have the perfect recipes that pack goodness and flavor into every package while still keeping it trim. With Village Hearth light bread and buns, you can lighten up on the calories and fat without losing out on the great taste. There's simply more to savor and nothing to sacrifice. With our light wheat, light 12 grain, and light Italian bread and buns, there's a light, tasty favorite for everyone in the family. Village Hearth, baking our best for you.
You're listening.
I understand that it's downright radio cliche to play Manic Monday on a Monday morning. So you're going, why? Why is it here on Wednesday? Well, as part of today's history lesson in a half hour, we're going to talk about Susanna Hoffs from the Bengals and a milestone birthday. That's going to blow your mind when you do the math on this. That's coming up just about 30 minutes from now. Look, one of the big challenges that we face in this country is too many people taking for granted how fragile our democracy really has been all this time. Yes, it has been tested through early and sometimes very divisive campaigns. Think Jefferson versus Adams. Yes, it's been tested by civil war. It's been tested by depressions and panics that led to the Gilded Age, but then led to a resurgence of labor power. It's been tested through World War. The tests are going to come. They're going to continue to come every so often, where we have to ask ourselves, are we willing to do what it takes to protect what we have against those who would like to upend it, who would like to short circuit the way that we allow democracy to work? And the way that it works is that people vote, and then the votes are counted, and then the votes are respected. And democracy really is based on what the losers do. Do the losers respect the will of the voters and simply prepare to run again in a future election? Or do they work to undermine what they've lost? And we've seen that numerous times now in both the federal and state governments for followers of Trump since 2020. And here in the Wisconsin legislature, the will of the voters that elected Governor Tony Evers in 2018 and again in 2022 has been undermined. The most recent example of that was when the Republican legislators in the state Senate yesterday voted to fire a member of the Public Service Commission, Tyler Huebner, simply because they want to try to wrestle control of government away from the executive branch, despite what you, the voter, said. Now, this is not the first time that Republicans have baselessly fired appointees for political purposes. In this case, they say that they don't like the fact that, the Public Service Commission was working on ways to help low-income families afford their water bills and didn't like the Public Service Commission having a focus on a changing climate. Those aren't reasons to fire somebody who wants to be a public servant and serve at the governor's pleasure the way that our state constitution calls for it to be done. But that's what they've done. They've also done it to, like I said, other folks in the past, including our friend Melissa Baldoff, who's normally here on Wednesdays to talk about a changing climate. And so when we talked to her late yesterday for that segment, I also wanted to talk to her a bit about what the Republican Senate did yesterday in firing another of the governor's appointees. Well, Melissa, I guess this is the weirdest case of deja vu that you'd hope to see.
It is, the deja vu all over again. The Republicans are just, the Senate Republicans are just never going to be happy with anything that the governor does. And for whatever reason, they want to make these, try to make these ridiculous points by firing people who are well-qualified public servants who are just doing their jobs. And it's just blows my mind that we're here yet again with them.
Well, especially when you say, that they're going to, have disagreements with the governor. Hey, the legislative branch and the executive branch in every state and in Washington, D.C., they've had disagreements for as long as we've had a republic. But while at that same time, respecting the will of the voters who chose the chief executive. So I don't think that Governor Evers is being the least bit hyperbolic when he talks about how this really is continuing to try to, as he put it, upend the basic functions of democracy and obstruct the peaceful and respectful transfer of power. Or the way that I would phrase it, giving the voters a big middle finger. Don't care who you voted for governor. We're going to take some of those duties away.
Yeah. And I think it's also, it is, that big middle finger FU to the voters who elected the governor. And it's a huge middle finger FU to everyone who believes in democracy and wants to see our government function how it's supposed to. And this is a party, this is the party of Donald Trump, who doesn't care. They don't care if the government functions well. That's not why they're doing this. They're not trying to get, these crazy people into office because they care about good government. It's because they want to consolidate power for themselves and their donors and score these political points. And they don't care what the consequences are. I think they quite prefer the chaos and are trying to, throw up these roadblocks. And, with some of these issues as well, they want to be, it's like the people who set the house on fire and then call the fire department and want to get credit for putting it out. They want it to be bad so they can justify, further undermining the governor's authority. They want things to fail so they can say that it failed. These are just people who don't care about our government functioning well and serving the people of this state.
Well, it also strikes me as potentially a dress rehearsal for what either a Trump administration would look like, or frankly, anybody in that vein who's ever elected president. There's been all this talk about, a right-wing group and what's been called Project 2025, which is essentially a dismantling of the civil service system that has helped America flourish for over a century now and allow even more presidential, more partisan, more political appointments. And Melissa, as well as I do, the very real danger if we start to tear apart, the tradition of nonpartisan or bipartisan civil service in this country.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it is very scary. I think you are right to, raise the concern about this just being a dress rehearsal. What else are they going to do? They have flexed their power a number of times and they haven't faced any consequences for it yet. They haven't, I don't think they have really been made to pay a price for it by the media to the fullest extent that they should. And certainly there is the opportunity for them to pay at the ballot box later this year, and having fair maps is going to be a big part of that. But obviously we know they're fighting that. And, I think we have every reason to be concerned about how they're going to approach the elections this year.
And I think that's where there needs to be discussion on, frankly, just reforming the nomination process, reforming and strengthening civil service, reforming U.S. Supreme Court appointments, maybe getting rid of the filibuster. I think there's a lot of room to run on reform here before there's nothing left to reform. And Melissa, thank you for taking a little extra time with your expertise to tell us all about it. We'll talk to you in a couple of minutes here on our weekly climate check report. We're going to be learning about clean Wisconsin today, right?
That we are, yes. Very excited.
Okay. Looking forward to that. Thanks, Melissa. Talk to you again in a bit.
All right.
The The Shaw, WAUK.
CBS News Brief. A new ice storm is moving into the Portland, Oregon area where many still have no electricity after bad weather over the weekend.
We had 3 oaks come down in the backyard, big ones that did damage to the roof. We had 2 fir trees come down in the front yards that took down power lines and everything, and that was all on Saturday morning.
Bitter cold settled in the east and the nation's midsection. Donald Trump takes a swipe at a competitor as the GOP presidential contenders move on to New Hampshire ahead of next Tuesday's vote.
Nikki Haley, in particular, is counting on the Democrats and liberals to infiltrate your Republican primary.
Mr. Trump, Haley, and Ron DeSantis all made stops in the Granite State. Secretary of State Blinken grapples with the war in Gaza during a stop at the World Economic Forum in Davos.
The suffering we're seeing among innocent men, women, and children breaks my heart. The question is, what is to be done?
CBS News Brief. I'm Deborah Rodriguez.
For Civic Media News, I'm Nate Wuggyhout. Here's what Wisconsin needs to know. A Democratic law firm is asking the state Supreme Court to reconsider the state's congressional maps. The Elias Law Group filed the case on Tuesday. They say that last month's decision to draw new legislative maps warranted another look at the state's congressional maps. Republicans currently hold 6 of the state's congressional seats. The court will have to move fast with just 11 months to go before the November election. Marshfield clinic workers across Wisconsin are being furloughed. 3% of the nearly 12,000 people who work for the healthcare system have to take unpaid time off. The furloughs come after a round of budget cuts in November and after talks about a merger with Essentia Health fell through last week. I'm Nate Wuggyhout, Civic Media News.
Think you'd like working with us at Civic Media? We're having fun and moving fast to preserve hometown radio across Wisconsin. If you have the right skills to join our team, let's talk. Civic Media is a proud equal opportunity employer committed to diversity and inclusion, along with the growth and development of all current and future employees. If you're interested or are part of an organization who wants to know more, go to our website, civicmedia.us, and click on the Careers tab.
This is your hometown radio, refreshed, keeping you informed, entertained, and connected locally across the Civic Media Network.
The coldest of the cold might be out of here, but it is still going to be cold today, partly to mostly cloudy, high of 15, but that wind chill below 0 most of the day. Tonight, a few flurries down to 7 above. Tomorrow, mostly cloudy. Afternoon, light snow, 17. More light snow tomorrow night with accumulation around an inch. I'm meteorologist Sean Cable. Outside now, 4 below 0.
Tune into The Empowered Caregiver with me, Liza Hellenbrand, every Wednesday evening at 7.
On 540 AM and 101.1 FM WAUK.
We've all felt left out. And for people who move to this country, that feeling lasts more than a moment. We can change that. Learn how at belongingbeginswithus.org. Brought to you by the Ad Council.
This is the Shaw, WAUK.
This is me, Gene Okerlund, and I'm talking with Brett Yulberg, owner of Robert Hack Diamonds. Brett, I hear you pay cash for gold.
Not only gold, but silver, diamonds in any form like jewelry, teeth, coins, flatware.
Why should I sell you my gold?
Why not? Our store is the only store that recommends you shop around before you sell. This way you know you're getting the most money. But if Robert Hack Diamonds can't beat a competitor's offer on your scrap gold, we'll give you $20 just for letting us try.
Hey, what if I'm shy?
You? Well, at Robert Hack Diamonds, we sit with you at a table. We go through your items and make you an offer. You're not pressured, and we offer more on jewelry that we can resell.
Can I trade my gold for a new piece of jewelry?
Of course you can, and not only that, we can custom make a piece of jewelry using your gold and gems.
Hey, there you have it, folks. Sell your gold to my friends at Robert Hack Diamonds. Visit them on 76th and Layton in Greenfield. Robert Hack Diamonds, where they want your business.
It's electric.
back now on this Wednesday morning on Up North News Radio. Melissa Baldoff is back with us now. This time for our regular climate check segment and learning more about clean Wisconsin. Melissa, good morning.
Good morning.
So we've been trying to start off the year, kind of a reset on all kinds of climate matters related to Wisconsin. What's on our collective national and state to-do list? And to do that, we'd like to hear about some of the groups that are working on ways to bring attention to the topic, ways to impact policy, and Clean Wisconsin certainly fits the bill there. So, Melissa, if you want to say just a bit about that, then bring in our guest, that would be great.
Sure. I'm really excited to have joining us today Chelsea Chandler from Clean Wisconsin. Chelsea is somebody who is an expert when it comes to air quality and issues that are impacting rural Wisconsin, ag issues, kind of you name it. She's had experience across the spectrum of issues involving the clean economy and the progress we're making as we are putting forward new solutions and trying to make that progress that is going to help us achieve our goals to reduce carbon emissions and transition to cleaner energy throughout the state of Wisconsin. So I think we can kind of turn it over to Chelsea to tell us a little bit about herself and about Clean Wisconsin and what they've been up to lately.
Sounds great. Chelsea, good morning.
Good morning. Thanks for having me. Clean Wisconsin has been around for over 50 years since the first Earth Day, and we work to ensure all Wisconsinites have access to clean air, clean water, clean energy, and a strong natural heritage. In my work on climate and energy and air issues, that covers kind of a big scope of work, everything from making sure we're using our energy wisely through conservation and energy efficiency, to transitioning off of dirty fossil fuels, moving to clean sources like solar and wind energy, making sure that we're growing crops in a sustainable way in our agricultural field, and making sure that the way that we get around through transportation, the way that we, live in our homes and in our businesses, that we're using energy wisely in our built environment as well.
When you talk about the pace of change, it actually ties in a bit to what we were just talking about with Republicans firing one of the PSC members. Not that we're going to ask you to get in the middle of that, but there was one of the Republican legislators made the comment at his confirmation hearing that he was under the impression that maybe Wisconsin was moving too fast in trying to get off of fossil fuels and into renewable energies. And so that's the way I would frame the question to you, Chelsea, is Wisconsin moving too fast?
I would say the opposite. I would say that we need to move faster, and that a lot of other states, including many of our neighbors, are moving faster than we are. So we risk being left behind. There's so many benefits to the clean energy transition, to our climate, to our air quality. Both of those impact our health, and to our economy too. I mean, solar and wind energy, wind even more so, are the cheapest forms of energy right now. And so it just makes so much sense to have more homegrown energy in Wisconsin instead of having to spend billions every year to import fossil fuels so we don't actually grow in Wisconsin. We do have plenty of sun here. We have plenty of wind here that we can take advantage of. And so I would say we absolutely need to kind of reverse and move much faster than we are right now, even though we are making good progress.
And what would you say are, some of the reasons why we are falling behind, some of our neighbors in the Midwest and other states? Is it just as simple as, this is a political fight, or are there other issues that are factoring in as well?
Well, I mean, politics impact policy, and we don't have enough supportive policy in place right now. I think we've got a lot of goals, and we have kind of some voluntary initiatives. So, the governor had created a goal to have 100% carbon-free electricity by 2050, but that is not binding. We do have a renewable portfolio standard on the books that is basically that. It is making that binding, but it's not 100%. It is much more modest than that. And it's 10%, and we met it back in 2013. So we haven't really upped our ambition in a decade. Meanwhile, our neighboring states have much more ambitious renewable portfolio standards. Minnesota is at 55%, Michigan 60%, Illinois is 50%. So again, just a very modest 10% that we've met isn't really pushing us in any other direction. Our major electric utilities in the state have goals to be 100% carbon free by 2050, but again, that's not binding, doesn't speak to the pace in the near term. And we have seen some cases of like coal retirements getting delayed, for example. So having a firm, requirements in place is going to help push us a lot faster. There's also, some policies that would support building more renewable energy at a variety of scales, including smaller scale projects like rooftop solar. And so there's a lot of policies like that we're a little bit behind on that. Some other places have more progressive stances on that would really help kind of accelerate and usher in this clean energy economy.
It would be nice if everybody just went along with embracing more renewable energy for altruistic reasons. But sadly, as we have found over the decades here, that is not the case with members of a certain political class. But it takes us to this other track, if you will, of discussion on renewable energy. And it's this: whatever your feeling is about the climate and your stewardship of it, embracing renewable energy, having a greener grid that's out there has economic and other financial benefits. In other words, if you're not going to be doing it for the planet, you can do it for your wallet or for your bottom line. There is this, a constant concern that somehow going toward renewable is not cost effective. Chelsea, it seems to me, everything I hear is just the opposite is true, is that we almost can't afford not to update the way that we're doing things.
Yeah, from the standpoint of larger scale projects, absolutely. Wind energy is very, very cheap, cheaper than fossil fuels. Same with solar energy. And it's really, if you can get past that upfront cost barrier, which can be a challenge for some people, you can get a good payback. And it's really a good investment. So if you're installing solar panels on your roof, you've got to pay up front. But then after, 7 years or so, it depends a little bit on kind of the economics, how big your system is, if you've got a net metering policy with your utility, how they're compensating you for that energy. You can make that money back, and then you've got free energy for the rest of the lifetime of those panels, which is often 25 plus years. So that certainly makes a lot of sense. It can make sense not to just install your own panels, but also to host them. We're seeing a lot of bigger projects come into some more rural areas where there's land that's really conducive for some of these solar arrays that's flat and dry and near a point where they can interconnect to the grid. And a lot of landowners and farmers are seeing that as a really important boost because they can lease their land to an energy company and get paid an annual amount for hosting those panels. That often far surpasses what they would make by growing crops on that land. And then there's also community-wide benefits of those programs or those projects too. So even if you don't own land and are directly leasing that land, communities, the hosting towns and counties actually, per Wisconsin state law, get an annual check every year for hosting those bigger projects. So it's $4,000 per megawatt every year. So for a typical, say, 300 megawatt solar project, that's over $1 million. That's basically a blank check that gets split between the hosting communities, the local towns and counties every year. So it's a really big boost and can be an investment in our rural communities. And I live in a rural part of the state where we're looking at putting in more renewable energy projects. And I see, the state of our schools, of our roads, looking at going to referenda to meet basic needs. And so that kind of income can really make a big difference in our rural communities too.
And, I think that's really interesting to hear you explain some of that, because one of the, frequent comments that we hear from, detractors and people who are, not really on board with the clean energy progress is that it is harmful to farmers and producers, and that it is somehow that there are negatives for folks in the agriculture community. And it sounds like there are, a number of ways that it's quite the opposite, that there are benefits. So, what are the, ways that renewable energy is most compatible with agriculture, and how is it, actually a benefit for folks in those communities?
Yeah, I think it's very reasonable to think about solar energy as kind of a crop rotation on the soil. It's not permanent. It has a longer lifetime. It's not something that you're, growing just 1 year at a time. But it's a great way to rest the soil for a little while, make sure that you're improving your soil health. You can get really great water quality benefits too by having more of a perennial cover under the panels. But it's also very compatible because I've also heard this argument that, solar could be a threat to our food system and our ability to feed ourselves. But I think we need to take a step back and remember that agriculture is not just growing food. Agriculture, we use our land for food, for fiber, and for fuel. And so solar is just kind of meeting that latter use. It's really compatible with agriculture because we're already growing a lot of energy on our agriculture to grow energy. In Wisconsin did a study last year where compared the energy that you can get out of a certain amount of land for solar panels and growing corn for ethanol, which is then blended into gasoline. And as electric cars take off, we're going to need more electricity. So that's really important. But it turns out when you compare the two, solar is 100 times more efficient than growing corn for ethanol. So the bottom line is we could meet all of our energy needs all of our clean energy needs by 2050 coming from solar, and use about a third of the land that we're using today to grow corn for ethanol. So it's not a big threat to our food system. We just need to think about ways that we can grow energy differently and more efficiently, because when you're talking 100 times more efficient, it seems like it makes a lot of sense, both from kind of an efficiency standpoint. It's like getting a higher yield out of your land, and then also from an economic standpoint, because as I was saying, you can make a lot more money from a solar lease than you can for a typical row crop. And those benefits do extend across the community as well in terms of the economics, and then the soil health and the water quality benefits too.
To learn more about that, you head over to cleanwisconsin.org. And we haven't even gotten into the Action Network and becoming more of an advocate on behalf of these issues. But Chelsea Chandler, thank you so much for an introduction to it. And we'll look forward to visiting again soon.
Thank you so much.
And I should also note, of course, the connection, she's in a very rural part of the western part of the state, so the internet connection for our conversation wasn't that great. We have a backup way of being able to take the recording directly off that person's computer, so we get this nice clear recording off the computer microphone and off the camera, and then they just have to upload it to us when the interview is over. Well, about 6 hours later, it was still uploading. So we said, never mind. We'll do our best with the internet quality connection. And, that just tells you the expansion of broadband just can't happen fast enough around some parts of Wisconsin. Hey, Melissa Kaye from Locally Grown Radio joins us for today's history lesson next. You're Up North. And how's Melissa today? I can't hear you. Are you
trying to console my cat?
What's happened to your cat?
Well, he got put in timeout this morning because he was being very naughty and climbing in my grandpa plant.
Oh, yeah. Don't do
So
that.
he got banished to the
Yeah,
porch.
because that's a sentence I've heard anyone ever say before. So nonchalant and normal.
Mm-hmm.
My grandpa plant. I don't even know what to do with that sentence.
It's a plant from my grandpa. What else would you
Oh.
call it?
I don't know.
Okay.
All right, back in 30.
Okay. You're going to hear a few Bengal songs today because of the birthday girl, Susanna Hoffs, lead singer of the Bengals. Melissa Kaye joins us from locally grown radio in Wisconsin Rapids. Melissa, how are you?
Good morning. I'm pretty good. How are you?
I'm good. Are you up to speed on your Bengals history here? Is Bengals part of your musical
you need
oeuvre?
to catch me up.
Oh, okay. Just again, when people are they know, somebody turned a certain age, Pat's going to make a big deal out of it. When you hear musical groups or individuals from the 70s, 80s, or wherever, and you see them on the birthday list, and like Susanna Hoffs today, 65. I'm like, that just doesn't seem right. How did that much time pass that quickly? But Greg, you said you've seen her lately.
Yeah.
Because I know she's still active out there.
She's still playing. She's still recording. She's still writing. She looks fantastic, and she does videos about like, I just lived a normal life and I didn't like overindulge, and this is what you look like when you're happy and healthy, and I was like, oh, all right, that's great.
She always did seem to have that good vibe around her, as opposed to say the Go-Go's went through their a volatile time, shall we say, living the life of a rock star. Susanna Hoffs did that to much less extent.
Yeah.
Good Los Angeles girl there who helped form the Bengals with sisters Debbie and Vicky Peterson. Susanna Hoffs is 65 years old today. What is happening in Wisconsin Rapids these days, Melissa?
Well, we are gearing up for a mayoral race in Wisconsin Rapids. Mayor Shane Blazer decided not to run for another term, so he's actually going to be on Midday Magazine today to talk about just the city and his time in it, I believe. And then we'll be heading into primary with a new mayor race. Yeah, we got a primary coming up February 20th, I believe, and then the general is April 2nd. So if you're not registered, get over to myvote.wi.gov and get that done, and listen to locally grown radio for the local issues about that. Yeah, let's get back to the birthdays here. Here's Paul Young. Remember his big hit "Every Time You Go Away." He is 60.
Can't you see we've got everything to go on. Every time you go away.
Paul Young is 68 years old today. This is the birth. Paul Old. Melissa's just like completely tuned you out and said, "Nope, the cat needs more attention than that joke does."
Well, he's a little sad.
Benjamin Franklin was born this day in 1706. Al Capone on this day in 1899. Betty White would have been 101 today, but passed away a couple years back, just shy of 100. She was born this day in 1922. James Earl Jones is still with us. He is 93 years old today.
Wow.
I know.
Sounds 60.
Yeah, I'll never get tired of that voice, that's for sure.
No.
Steve Harvey is 67. Actress Zooey Deschanel is 44 years old today. The number one song this day in 1976 was by Barry Manilow.
I write the songs that make the whole world sing. I write the songs of love, special things.
And of course now you can't mention I write the songs without the little trivia twist behind it. Out of all the songs Barry Manilow wrote, and he wrote a lot of them, this was not one of them. I Write the Songs was written by Bruce Johnson of the Beach Boys. I know. Okay. See?
That's funny.
Also a very cocky statement, too. I write the songs that make the whole world sing.
And he didn't write it.
I think that was maybe part of his hesitation. Now that I didn't write it, it sounds, but not only did it do well, it won the Grammy for Song of the Year in 1976. So sometimes it's good to swallow your pride a little bit. More birthdays. Jim Carrey is 62 years old today. Former First Lady Michelle Obama is 60 years old today. And Kid Rock, Robert Ritchie is his real name. Robert Ritchie of Romeo, Michigan is 53 today.
Sipping whiskey out the bottle, not thinking about tomorrow, singing Sweet Home Alabama all summer long.
It was on this date in 2013 that Lance Armstrong confessed to doping as part of an Oprah Winfrey special. Operation Desert Storm began the Persian Gulf War this day in 1991. And this is the anniversary of when Prohibition began in the U.S. Alcohol was made illegal this day in 1920 and would go on for the better part of that decade and lead to all kinds of crimes and colorful stories as a result. So, Melissa, how you coping with the weather there? Did you get much for that snowstorm the other day?
We didn't do too badly, but yeah, the cold is definitely cold. My furnace does not stop running, and my feet are still cold. Doesn't matter how many layers I put on.
Mm-hmm. Are you part of the driveway crew to get in and out of your place, or do you?
No.
Do you have no?
I have. Fortunately, my boyfriend has access to a plow truck, so he just goes and gets it and zips it out. I don't have to do anything.
Does he want to come down to Kenosha and help me out?
This is the first time in my life, I'll have you know. I have shoveled my fair share of driveways.
Oh, yes. I don't miss that one bit. Today is National Customer Service Day. It's also Museum Selfie Day. It is Bootleggers Day, which, of course, is a hat tip to Prohibition. It is Popeye Day for the cartoon character. And
so we should eat spinach.
Spinach to go along with this is Hot Buttered Rum Day. So hot buttered rum and a little bit of spinach I guess.
Some bootleggers. Oh, wow. Yep. It's going to be a tippy day.
Yes, it is.
Get arrested at a museum trying to take a picture of yourself.
Well, I was going to say, because some museums...
You're not supposed to put the hat on, Greg.
Yes. Some museums are good on photos, some not so much, or at least not the flash photography. So, yeah, please abide by the rules as appropriate.
And don't go drunk.
And no, please don't go drunk with any moonshine or anything else like that. My wife talks about how her grandpa was a moonshine runner for a time, but she doesn't know a lot of the details. And I really want to find out if maybe one of the aunts and uncles or somebody like that could fill in some of those blanks, because I mean, there was a lot of that going on in eastern Wisconsin, of course, coming up from Al Capone, Chicago, and again, it was illegal. A lot of bad things happened. A lot of people were killed. A lot of people were jailed. But there were also all kinds of stories that came out of that era. And
bathtub gin.
Yep. I'd love to hear more about that as well. Melissa, thanks for visiting with us, telling us what's coming up on Locally Grown Radio. You keep
always a pleasure, you guys.
Keep those feet warm out there, and we'll talk to you a little later on.
Yes, we can. See ya.
All right. In our second hour, we will talk to State Senator Jeff Smith from the Eau Claire area. Talk about what Republican state senators did yesterday in firing baselessly another one of Governor Tony Evers' appointees, and his bill for ranked choice voting, and his sponsorship of new maps for the legislature. All that coming up next. You're Up North.
Wisconsin informed, engaged, and entertained. This is The Shaw, 540 AM and 101.1 FM, WAUK.
Enjoying this local program? Find the complete Civic Media lineup at civicmedia.us or the Civic Media app. Radio keeps your community informed, entertained, and connected. It's what we're all about at the Civic Media Network of local radio stations.
We're having fun and moving fast to preserve hometown radio across Wisconsin. This includes a commitment to news. Now we want to invite you to join Civic Media's exclusive Facebook group, Wisconsin Breaking News. It's a place to share your community's news and chat with others from across the state about it.
Join the Facebook group Wisconsin Breaking News today. It's the perfect companion to your local Civic Media radio station. You're listening to The Shaw, WAUK 540 AM Jackson, W266DR Waukesha, and always streaming on the Civic Media app.
This is the CBS World News Roundup, sponsored by Staples.
I'm Deborah Rodriguez. We begin in Portland, Oregon, where a new storm is threatening to compound the misery for more than 72,000 customers who still have no power after a series of storms over the weekend. Correspondent Jared Hill reports.
This morning, the Pacific Northwest, already battered by winter weather, is bracing for a potentially dangerous ice storm.
Nothing's worse than ice on the road. That's pretty much the scariest kind of condition we can get on the roads.
Oregon officials closed 47 miles of I-84 due to the threat of ice. This week's winter wallop plunged much of the country into a deep freeze, grinding air travel to a halt Tuesday.
More than 1,400 flights in the U.S. are canceled or delayed so far today. Just in, troubling new findings on cancer. After decades of declining rates, a study released by the American Cancer Society this hour finds colon cancer is now the leading cause of cancer death for men under 50 and the second for women in the same age group. The research shows breast cancer is also on the rise in younger adults. Missed screenings during the pandemic may be to blame. The top Republican presidential contenders have moved on from the Iowa caucuses to New Hampshire, rallying supporters in Atkinson. Former President Trump took a verbal shot at Nikki Haley.
You'd almost think she won. She came in third, and she lost to not a particularly great candidate, obviously, as you've seen. She lost to somebody that beat her by about 2.5 points, Ron DeSanctimonious.
DeSantis at a stop in Greenville, South Carolina.
Nikki Haley said only the top two from Iowa, go on to be viable. Well, guess what? We punched our ticket out of Iowa.
Polls show Mr. Trump ahead in New Hampshire, but not by nearly as much as Iowa, where he won the caucuses with more than 50% of the vote. New information on Defense Secretary Austin's secret hospitalization. CBS News has obtained the 911 call placed by an associate.
Can the ambulance not show up with lights and sirens? We're trying to remain a little subtle.
Austin was rushed to Walter Reed with complications from prostate cancer surgery, which was also not disclosed. He's back home now. A shipment of medicine arranged by France and Qatar is headed to hostages held by Hamas. The BBC's Yolande Nell.
We understand that they will be transferred across to Gaza. In exchange, we understand Hamas has accepted that there will be a big increase in the number of medicines allowed in for Palestinian civilians suffering in Gaza.
Discount grocer is getting greener.
This is how I got Patrick to switch to Aldi.
Aldi getting rid of its plastic bag option at checkout. This is CBS News.
Staples stores provide innovative products and services for small business, remote workers and learners, even teachers and parents. Explore more at your local Staples store.
For Civic Media News, I'm Nate Wuggyhout. Here's what Wisconsin needs to know. Senate Republicans voted to fire another one of Governor Evers' appointees Tuesday, this time Tyler Huebner of the state's Public Service Commission. Evers is appointing Christy Neto to take his place. Senate Republicans have fired 8 of Evers' appointees since last fall. The keynote speaker at this year's State of Wisconsin Martin Luther King Day celebration says he wants the promise of justice one day to happen now.
It is ridiculous that people are attacking diversity, equity, and inclusion, but refuse to implement laws to remove guns from the hands of those who continue to shoot innocent children in schools, in malls, and even in faith places.
The Reverend Marcus Allen is a Baptist minister in Madison. I'm Nate Wiggyhout, Civic Media News.
The Badgers lose in an upset. Hi, I'm Mike Clemens with sports. Men's college basketball, the Badgers had not lost to a Big Ten opponent until they faced Penn State. And Kane Clary.
Shot clock down at 10, game clock at 44. Clary drives by wall, pulls, pops, good off the glass. He has been spectacular. Penn State up 6, 34 seconds to play.
Matt LePay with the call. Clary finished with 29 points on the way to an 87-83 win for Penn State over Wisconsin. Badgers head coach Greg Gard.
Obviously, the turnovers, I thought early, right from the start, we just got a little frenzied, and that gave them confidence as they were able to jump out to that lead that we can never quite get back where we felt we could get in control of it.
The Badgers host Indiana Friday night. NFL, the Packers will be without backup outside linebacker Kingsley Enagbare after he suffered a knee injury against the Cowboys. Rookie Lucas Van Ness will have to step up as a pass rusher against the 49ers this Saturday night.
I think the more he plays, the better he gets.
That's Packers head coach Matt LaFleur. With sports, I'm Mike Clemens.
The coldest of the cold might be out of here, but it is still going to be cold today, partly to mostly cloudy, high of 15, but that wind chill below zero most of the day. Tonight, a few flurries down to 7 above. Tomorrow, mostly cloudy, afternoon light snow, 17. More light snow tomorrow night with accumulation around an inch. I'm meteorologist Sean Cable. Currently, it's 5 below.
This is your local Civic Media radio station. Want to hear even more? Anytime? Find all of it at civicmedia.us. Your home of the Earl Ingram Show. Weekday
mornings. All across Wisconsin from Civic Media, this is Up North News Radio. Now, live from our Lake Wissota studio, here's the founding editor of Up North News, Pat Brightlow.
On a very frozen Lake Wissota on this Wednesday, January 17th. Welcome back. Coming up later this hour, Senator Jeff Smith reacts to the latest Republican attack on Governor Evers' appointees. He also gives us details on 2 different ways that legislators can be more responsive to the voters instead of to political parties. Smith is part of one group that just submitted a proposed new map to end gerrymandering, and he's sponsoring a bill to let voters choose multiple candidates in a race and rank them in order of preference. We'll talk to Jimmy Koska, who will preview the state conference for Wisconsin school board members. We will visit with Todd Allbaugh, and we've got meteorologist Brittany Merlot here and Greg Bach as well. On a Wednesday morning that is getting off to a very cold start, as evidenced by, comments on Facebook by Rob here, who says, good morning from Tigerton. It's -4, but looking back at weather history, there were also lows in the -30s in 1972, 1982, and 1994. We definitely get those cold spells in here. He says, I'm into weather history from the days when my family farm was always talking about events and weather trends on the farm. And Rob, we thank you for writing in on that. And also to Curtis, who wished us good morning from Eagle River, Wisconsin. You can put your comments on Facebook either through Civic Media or through Up North News. You can also call or text us at 844-967-2789. Always nice to get a text from where you're listening from and any questions or comments about the show that you might have. 7 a.m. temperatures at 8 past the hour look like this. It's 2 above right here in Chippewa Falls, 2 above in Hayward. Park Falls is at -1. So is Wausau. Green Bay is at -2. La Crosse at 0 degrees Fahrenheit right now. Wisconsin Rapids -5. Oshkosh -4. Madison is 0, and it is 4 below down around Mr. Bach's very chilly feet there in the Waukesha studio. You stepped in a snowbank again. How do you do these things?
He did not.
Yeah, he did it again.
Okay.
He did.
You know what? Okay, both of you, pipe down. All right. I had made a trail for myself. Pat, I'm talking. I had made a trail for myself, and I thought I was in the clear, and apparently I wasn't. And I stepped in more snow, and my stop it. I stepped in more snow, and now my socks are wet and my shoes are wet and my pants are wet. So I'm going home for the rest of the day.
Thank you for the laughs this early in the morning.
Only, you know what we need is you need a wood stove in there, a little like pot-bellied stove where you can put your socks and get them all nice and warm and toasty dry again. We're looking for ways to.
And I just run pedals underneath the desk radio station because it's an old time station. Oh.
All right, Brittany's going to tell us about how much longer is this going to last, Britt? All these below zero temperatures.
I know, it's been rough. We're through the worst of it, though. The worst of the wind chills have passed. Right now, the winds are actually pretty calm, thankfully, but still creating some values into Fond du Lac, Marshfield, Wisconsin Rapids. You are feeling like 20 to 25 below right now. But a good chunk of the state is feeling more like negative 15. So as we go through our day today, we are going to warm things up to above zero. Yeah, finally. Single digits into the Northwoods, double digits into the low teens down into the southern portions of the state today. But with winds still a little feisty at 15 miles per hour this afternoon, that's going to make it feel more like below zero for a good chunk of the day. But we will start to feel our actual temperatures by tomorrow. I've got some more clouds starting to build in, so a little bit cloudier than the past few days. And the clouds are our friend in these situations, especially at night. They act as a blanket, right? If they cover the sky, they keep the warmth in, they lock it in just like blankets do. So we'll welcome the clouds to warm us up, and southerly winds by the weekend really crank us up into temperatures flirting with the 40s by next week.
Wait. What? 40s?
Yeah, I know.
Within the next few days?
It's Wisconsin. If you don't like the weather now, just wait a day and it's going to change, right?
I'm seriously surprised about this. Yes, that is some very good news.
I
did
don't
have a question
like
for
it.
you, Brittany.
Yeah.
I had a question. When you talked like last week, we were speaking on the importance of the ice forming for events as well as, just good environmental practices. Has it been cold enough for long enough now where they have the ice they need that's helping whomever is necessary?
I'm hoping so. I know that I've seen a lot of pictures coming in right now from Lake Michigan, Lake Superior, that sea smoke. Have you guys seen that? It's beautiful. One of my favorite things when it does get this cold. So that is the water making ice, right? That's what's happening. So I know I haven't checked a lot of the ice conditions out on the Great Lakes, but the shorelines are starting to freeze up. I'm assuming inland lakes as well, but it's temporary. I'm worried how thick did it get and how fast, because by next week, 40s, rain, ice.
Yeah. I mean, everybody on a case-by-case basis, and to be so extra careful on this because we've already seen it was mostly in central Minnesota where people were being downright goofy and being caught out on ice floes when they were trying to go out fishing before the ice was sufficiently thick enough, and we don't want to see any of that. We've already seen tragedy from thin ice, and we just need everybody to never assume and to be extremely careful on these things, because it's getting super cold, but hey, it doesn't take much for those 40s to weaken things all over again.
Absolutely. And you've got the currents and the different turbulent eddies underneath the water. You don't know exactly where it's warm, so bring that ice pick, check the depth everywhere if you're going to go out.
Very good advice, meteorologist Brittany Merlot. Brittany, thank you again. Have a wonderful day.
Thanks, you too. Stay warm.
All right. Sounds great. It is exactly 7:13 right now here on Up North News Radio. And let's see, we've got from Greg. Blind Greg says, good morning from Waukesha, a.k.a. the Shaw, and he is hibernating inside today. We think that is a very good strategy for anybody who can do it. It is definitely one of those days where I get teased about you never have to go outside when you work from home. Like, yeah, because I joke all summer about Sherry having to push me outside, going, go out and play, go get some fresh air. But now I look like the smart one. Like, who wants fresh air if it's going to hurt your face, right?
Oh, it hurts your face so much, Pat.
It does, and I don't miss that one bit. Our daily newsletter from Up North News is out, and today it includes a story about the Great Dane Brewery, a chain of brew pubs in the Madison area, opening a location in Japan. That and so much more can be found over on our homepage. You can sign up for the newsletter there at upnorthnewswi.com. Up North News being a separate entity from Civic Media, but also, as always, thankful to be a part of it all. Up North News, rather, is the the digital outlet for Courier Newsroom. We have outlets in several other states. Just started an outlet in New Hampshire, just in time to cover the primary out there. And by the way, Courier Newsroom has a new podcast. It's called Vibes Only, where hosts Brian Derrick and Glennis Mahar call out the BS that is skewing how Americans feel about the economy and about democracy itself. So head over to couriernewsroom.com and you can find out how to get on that podcast. You can also find out how to subscribe to newsletters that have all kinds of great reporting from show guests like Kia Vakil, Mark Jacob, Carolyn Fiddler, and much more. We'd love to have you check out everything that we do over at couriernewsroom.com. And one last note from Greg on Facebook. Tell Greg Bach I love his hairdo today. Well, now I got to bring the camera back up here.
Thanks, Greg.
Take a look. Let's see what do we got here. What do you call that? I call it what headphones will do to you at 7 a.m.
Darn right. Darn right.
Did you hear all that while you were taking the headphones off to show us your hair?
Yeah.
Okay. All right.
Yeah.
Don't take it personally. You have fans out there.
Well, fun fact, Greg and I have known each other for about 25 years.
All right. You have somebody obligated to say nice things about you now and then.
Why can't you just let a compliment stand?
That's a wonderful compliment. Now go write out that $5 Venmo and send it to him like you promised you would. Let's look at sports. Now some sports coming up on 7:16 here. The Bucks play tonight in Cleveland against the Cavaliers, and you can catch that game on a few Civic Media radio stations here. They include WRCE in Richland Center, Oshkosh Air Support, Lake Air in Amory, WRJN in Racine, and 98Q Country in Park Falls to catch the Bucks tonight against the Cleveland Cavaliers. The 11th ranked Badger men's basketball team lost last night at Penn State 87-83. That means the Big Ten no longer has any unbeaten teams as Wisconsin drops to 5-1. The Badgers will host Indiana on Friday night at the Kohl Center. And the Badger women's basketball team was thumped by second-ranked Iowa last night by a score of 96-50. Big part of what we've been talking about today deals with the ongoing power play by legislative Republicans who are doing all they can to try to operate in parts of government where the people did not elect them. And another example of that was seen yesterday in Republicans in the state Senate firing a member of the Public Service Commission, not for any malfeasance, not for I'm not aware of any pending criminal charges against this person, but because they don't like the governor and they don't like some of what his appointees are doing. But that's the whole notion of having gubernatorial appointees. You, the voters, made your choices in each of these elections as to who would be your legislator in the legislative branch, who would be the governor in the executive branch. Governors and presidents appoint members of their own cabinet. There is an advise and consent role from the Senate if there's, again, some kind of glaring error or red flag about a nominee, but not because you don't like them. That is just simply raising a big middle finger to the will of the voters, and that's something Senate Republicans are continuing to do. Now, again, this is not an isolated thing. You had everything from the way that right-wing justices affected the 2000 election, Bush v. Gore. You had the way that Republicans in the Senate denied President Obama Supreme Court nominees. You now have people supporting Trump talking about this Project 2025 plan that would turn an independent civil service into a whole bunch of political appointees. In all cases, whatever you think of where Republicans stand on certain economic positions, it's worth your while to find out where they stand on positions related to American democracy and whether they still believe in it or not. And we'll talk more about that with Senator Jeff Smith in just a few minutes. But coming up next, we'll be joined by Jimmy Koska, who is a school board member and heading to a statewide conference today. So we'll talk in our homeroom segment about some of the issues that are going to be discussed this week. Hey, wherever you're listening across Wisconsin on this Wednesday morning, when you're here, you're up north, live from Lake Wissota on the Civic Media Radio Network. We'll be back in just a bit.
WAUK.
Save big money on your next painting project with help from...
How you doing, Jimmy?
Project that requires...
Hey, how's it going, man? What part of Lake Wissota are you on?
I'm on the very northern tip of it.
Gotcha. My dad is over by the hydroelectric dam, so that's why.
Oh, sure. Okay. Yep. Oh, awesome. Good spots. All right. This this is a short break, so we'll be back in just a bit.
Sounds good.
All right.
Joy Engine salutes the work of Martin Luther King Jr. as we celebrate his accomplishments in civil rights, his leadership in fighting injustice through peaceful protests, the March on Washington, the Montgomery bus boycott, the Civil Rights and Voting Rights Acts, and much more. MLK led the way for millions to work towards achieving equality. This week, join Joy Engine with Civic Media in recognizing Dr. King's accomplishments and contributions.
You're listening to The Shaw, WAUK.
Got a bit of a Bengals theme going on this morning because Susanna Hoffs turns 65 years old today. You can catch our daily history lesson and other musical milestones every morning at 6:50 here on Up North News Radio. Jimmy Koska is joining us now, complete with a hello from listener Greg, who puts a hi, Jimmy, right on there. So people already anticipate your appearances, Jimmy, and look forward to them. How are you?
Well, that's great to hear. I'm doing great. Here in Milwaukee, getting ready for the education convention, which begins here in 40 minutes.
Yeah, I see that. I called up the page for the Wisconsin Association of School Boards. They have a convention page about what's going on at the Baird Center in Milwaukee with a countdown clock of days, hours. Now it's down to 38 minutes and 49 seconds. So apparently they're very excited about getting together in Milwaukee. And what kinds of things are they talking about? Is this something? Let me back up a step. Have you been to, I guess it's WASB, the Wisconsin Association of School Boards. Have you been to WASB conventions before?
Yes, actually, I'm our alternate on our school board for all the things that they do with school boards around the state at the school district that I'm on the school board for. But I was here last year for this convention and learned quite a bit. I made sure to pack in sessions on things I didn't know a lot about, a lot of it relating to how schools are financed. And because that's an area I'm not good with my own money. My wife is in mortgaging, so she does our finances. But I had to learn about it because I'm on a school board and I'm trusted to know these things. So I dove into that last year. This year, a lot of the themes are really spread out into a few key areas. School funding is obviously a very big issue in the era of declining enrollment and soon the end of federal funding, the ESSER funding from COVID. A lot of schools are going to operational referenda. In fact, chances are probably a 1 in 4 chance the district that you live in Wisconsin is planning a referendum right now. In fact, 7 districts have one on the ballot next month in February during the primary. So that's one of the big themes, obviously hiring, retention, things like that, with a shortage of teachers, et cetera. That's a big theme this year as well. And of course, as always, school safety. So those are some of the topics that I'll be trying to learn more about here the next 3 days.
And anytime that there's this discussion on how we pay for schools, and God bless every new school board member, because I mean, talk about walking right into the maelstrom and having to learn the super complex way that we pay for schools in Wisconsin. Is so much more complex than it needs to be. And so people will ask simple questions that frankly don't have simple answers. And I'll give you an example. They'll say, wait, school districts got all this federal pandemic aid a couple of years ago. And now that, money is running out, and wasn't it supposed to be one-time aid? How can there be a problem? But again, it's so much more complex with how the aid was delivered, whether it could go to its intended purposes, when you had, say, Republican legislators who continue to put limits and handcuffs on how school boards can spend their revenue.
And a big issue with schools, what they're facing funding wise, the declining enrollment is a big piece of it. And that's really how that's the basically the baseline in any formula to fund public schools is how many kids do you have in schools? And what we're finding and what you're seeing with the reporting and what we'll probably hear about a lot the next few days is, well, where are they going? Well, a lot of them are they're going to virtual or they're going to charter or private schools. Some of them aren't going to school at all. They're opting for homeschooling. And famously, the DPI is saying, well, there's a gap of kids. We just don't know what they're doing. So there's an issue with declining enrollment. And part of that's tied to just an overall declining population. Not as many kids are being born with things. So that's part of that formula. But, the other part of it is just how funding is appropriated by the budget process. And yes, the per pupil did, increase, of course, with Governor Evers' partial line item veto. But when it was all said and done, 40% of districts actually see less state aid. And a lot of that is based in just the declining enrollment.
And when it comes to declining enrollment, it's important to note one of the first things they taught us as legislators was, let's say you had, 40 kids on the bus. But again, because of declining enrollment, fewer people live somewhere. Now there's only 36 kids on the bus. Or in a classroom, there were 25 kids, but now there's 22. Well, you can't cut that fraction. You can't cut 3/40 of the price of gasoline for the school bus. It's still going to cost the same amount for the school bus. You can't cut, 3/25 of the teacher's salary. The teacher's still going to get paid whether there's 25 kids or 22 kids in there. And yet that's kind of the way we're set up in Wisconsin, is that, declining enrollment dings the district, even though a lot of their fixed costs remain fairly constant.
And in fact, a lot of those fixed costs increase, especially through the pandemic. A lot of those things actually increase. We actually passed a referendum last year, and they said that if we had passed this referendum pre-pandemic, it would have been that the costs increased in just 4 years by about 30% for materials. So, the costs are going up regardless, and schools are trying to offer the same programming, same services. But schools have tough decisions to make. Last spring, our last time we had a referenda on the ballots, there were 2 school districts in north central Wisconsin that had to go to an operational referendum to keep the doors open, saying that if they didn't pass these, that they'd start the consolidation process into other districts. And that's not good for local taxpayers either. Now you're talking about increased travel. You're talking about, moving kids, splitting one district and being absorbed by its neighbors. It's a long multi-year process, and it ultimately results in higher taxes for everybody. So when people say, well, if the school district's so expensive and we can't afford it, well, maybe we just don't have one and it consolidates. And that's not a conversation that legislators necessarily want to have or suggest, but that's kind of the reality facing schools, especially now when you look and you see how many are planning a referendum. Next week is the deadline to get on that April ballot. And I have anecdotally heard that over 100 districts are at least considering a referendum right now.
Yeah, that is going to be the focus of next week's homeroom segment, is how many referendums will be on that April ballot with that deadline that's approaching. And again, for all the complexities and the challenges involved, that would be enough if you had a legislature that was focused on supporting public education. But when you don't, it just makes that job that much tougher. But getting back to the conference here, as I'm looking at all of the various breakout sessions, it again helps to underscore the importance of having good people on school boards who want to take a comprehensive view of the issues in their district. Some people get on a board and say, well, I'm just here to cut taxes. Well, then you're doing nothing for the kids or for the community. And you look at some of these things like the importance of local communication, creating a culture of wellness, topics in special education, keeping people safe in severe weather, First Amendment issues like guns on T-shirts and prayers by coaches, shifting from contracted bus services to district-owned bus services. There really is a lot that goes into being on a school board that, again, no one person can come in as an expert, but you have to be willing to appreciate the role and be willing to learn, Jimmy.
Yeah, and that's really why I dove into this head first. This is my second year on a school board. It's the second year I'm at the convention, and I really try to go for topics that maybe I don't know a lot about. But the other part of it is I'm going to a lot of topics, too, that deal with communication, community involvement, community engagement, things that I'm actually kind of good at because that's my role in media. And I'm trying to find strategies that work and apply it on a school level because that, on a school board, my role isn't necessarily to communicate on behalf of the school, but I do represent the school, especially, in this capacity, I do. So I try to learn as many tips and tricks as I can. There's a lot of really smart people here this week, and I honestly can't wait to get started here today.
Yeah, I'm going to be down there tomorrow for part of it, and looking forward to meeting so many good people that want to make sure education in this state is as strong as possible. Jimmy Koska, thanks for helping set it up. I'm sure we'll be talking more about these issues over time. Happy New Year to you, and we'll talk to you a little later.
Take care, Pat. Thank you.
All right, thanks, Jimmy. Coming up next, State Senator Jeff Smith will join us. You're Up North.
Slide feet up the street.
All right, there we go. Thank you, Jimmy.
I appreciate it. Thank you.
All right, we'll see you.
A powerful ice storm is moving in across Oregon, where more than 72,000 customers still have no electricity after a series of storms over the weekend. Pompey Chaudhary with Portland Power.
Ice and snow is getting accumulated on the power equipment that is causing heavy damages, and hence we're having some delay in getting the restoration work completed.
New report this morning from the American Cancer Society shows colon cancer is now the leading cause of cancer deaths in men under 50 and the second for women in the same age group. Missed screenings during the pandemic may be to blame. After a number one finish for Donald Trump in Iowa and second and third place finishes for DeSantis and Haley, respectively, the GOP presidential hopefuls have moved on to New Hampshire. CBS's Jared Hill.
Recent polling shows the former UNM
Senator.
Hey, can you hear me?
I hear you great. Yes. How are you?
All right. I'm all just fine.
All right.
Good morning.
Yep.
I haven't been outside, so.
Well, see, we get to keep you here a little bit. We get to keep you safe and comfortable a little bit longer.
Yeah. Okay. So I take it you work out of your office at home?
Oh yeah, kitchen's right there. Coffee pots are right there. It's not a bad gig. They are eventually going to have an operating studio in downtown Chippewa, but I'm digging being able to just do this in my street clothes, you know.
Oh, it's kind of nice to be at home.
Oh yeah. What's on your docket today?
I have this. Then I have another meeting at 8:30. Then I have committee at 9:30. I have a speaking engagement at 10:30, and come back to the committee.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, busy day.
Yeah, busy indeed. Okay. And then when do you head back up north?
Not till the end of the day tomorrow.
Okay. Alrighty.
Long week.
Probably, I was going to say, I'll probably be ships passing in the night as I head down to that WASB conference in Milwaukee.
Oh.
Yep. And then I'll do the show Friday from Waukesha and then head to Madison for the day on Friday. All right. Good. Where are we at here? We are just over 2 minutes away. So I'm going to bring the commercial slide up and we'll be up in just a sec here.
The coldest of the cold might be out of here, but it is still going to be cold today, partly to mostly cloudy, high of 15, but that wind chill below zero most of the day. Tonight, a few flurries down to 7 above. Tomorrow, mostly cloudy. Afternoon, light snow, 17. More light snow tomorrow night with accumulation around an inch. I'm meteorologist Sean Cable. Currently, it's 5 below.
Be a part of the resistance. Check out the Paul Revere Show with Mark Thompson. Monday nights at 7 on the Shaw. 540 AM and 101.1 FM WAUK. And on the Civic Media app.
You are listening to your local Civic Media radio station on air. Thank you. Did you know we are always streaming on TuneIn and the Civic Media app too? And if you miss a show or game, find it wherever you get your podcasts or on our website, civicmedia.us.
This is the Shaw, WAUK.
Robert Hack Diamonds pays cash for your unwanted gold, silver, and even diamonds. That's right. Robert Hack Diamonds wants to make you an offer on your gold, silver, and diamonds. The process is very simple. No appointment needed. Just come on in, sit down in a nice, relaxed atmosphere, and the staff of Robert Hack Diamonds will evaluate your unwanted gold, silver, and diamonds and make you an offer on the spot. Then you can decide if you want a deal or no deal. Robert Hack Diamonds can also convert your old jewelry into into something new or trade in your outdated pieces for something new and exciting. Many people inherit jewelry that might not be your taste, but you are sentimental. Why not have Robert Hack Diamonds take the golden gems and create something for you? So many options at Robert Hack Diamonds. Again, Robert Hack Diamonds pays cash for your unwanted gold, silver, and diamonds. See them in Brookfield, just east of Moreland on Greenland Avenue, or 76 in Layton, right on the corner in Greenfield. RobertHackDiamonds.com.
Waukesha, home of Les Paul.
We'll have Sarah Kieski of Lodi talking about what motivates her to run for public office. She'll visit us along with Dr. Kristen Lyerly. We'll talk to Luke Mathers, Joe Zepecki, all ahead Thursday morning on Up North News Radio. It continues to be a hazy shade of winter in the state capitol as well, with recent events, some of them rather ominous and some of them rather promising. And so we'll talk about that with Jeff Smith. I don't want to, toot my horn too much that I did too good a job as a state senator, but apparently I made it look so good that Jeff made the jump from assembly to state senate himself, and joins us now from Madison, where he serves from the town of Brunswick in Eau Claire County. Mr. Smith, how are you?
Well, Pat, I always say this job is about credit and blame, and looks like you're going to do both here.
It's what I do best. Politicians and talk show hosts. So hey, we've got a lot of ground to cover. Some of it unexpected. I definitely wanted to have you on to talk about ranked choice voting and Final Five primaries. Also the new maps. You're part of a group that submitted a proposal for new maps. But the more current event is the ongoing assault by state Senate Republicans on democracy and the will of the voters, and against allowing the person running the executive branch to choose their own appointees and nominees. And yet, for the 10th time now, Senate Republicans have taken action against one of Evers' appointees for baseless and partisan purposes. And I'm sure you did not have good things to say about Public Service Commission member Tyler Huebner being let go yesterday.
I did not. We received a letter, in fact, from members of the Upper Midwest Utility Board, which he's a part of. I mean, it was talking about, I don't know how many states are involved, but I think it was 8 of commissioners who from different states, from Montana to Minnesota, Illinois, Michigan, all over the country here, that signed a letter saying it would be a travesty for us to lose such an important and valuable commissioner. It's sad. It's not about quality. It's not about experience. It's simply about ideology with these guys.
Yeah, you referred to the quote that you gave that I saw in the Wisconsin Examiner, is that you called it as spiteful as it was stupid, because it is a stupid move from the standpoint of professional qualifications, and again continues to make Wisconsin Republican lawmakers look small. Is there anything else that might be behind this besides just a power play against Governor Evers?
That's a really good question. You might going to have to get one of those fellas on your show and ask them and see if they can swear them to the truth. But it's possible. Has a lot to do with the fact that they still want to deny climate change, and they just don't appreciate the fact that somebody is actually preparing for the future, like Tyler was.
Yeah. What was that? At question, apparently, based on his confirmation hearing in committee recently, was unhappiness that the Public Service Commission was looking at a pilot project in making sure that low-income folks could afford their water bill, water being, I don't know, an essential quality of life thing, perhaps, and another that did involve, concerns over a changing climate and reducing carbon dioxide emissions. And what we were hearing instead from Republicans was something along the lines of that the state, through the Public Service Commission, was moving too fast, was moving too quickly, as one of your Senate colleagues said, permitting so much wind and solar over a short time horizon without significant subsidies or regulatory changes. Now, we talked to somebody from Clean Wisconsin in our last hour who argued completely the opposite point. We're not moving too fast towards solar and wind. We're falling well behind our neighboring states when it comes to embracing renewable energies, Jeff.
We really are. It's short-sighted, but hey, Pat, you've been here. You know that the motto here, unspoken motto, is don't move too fast because you might work yourself out of a job. I don't know about this place.
Understandable. And, another person who commented in the Senate, of course, was your colleague, State Senator Brad Pfaff from Alaska, who should know because he was serving in Governor Evers' cabinet as the head of Agriculture, Trade, and Consumer Protection before Republicans fired him because he dared, question the work that Republicans were doing on behalf of farmers. So this is not something I think that's going to be diminished by exposure or by shame, but perhaps it can be diminished by new maps and by no longer protecting an extreme Republican majority. We're aware now that the state Supreme Court has declared the current maps unconstitutional. They asked all the parties in the case for proposals for new maps. That happened last Friday. You are part of one of those 7 parties in the case. So tell us about basically what Senate Democrats did and turned in on Friday.
Well, we could have just taken the angle that the Republicans have done and did again with their maps, and that is a total partisan gerrymander. We could have done that, but no, what we really want in the end is something that works for everybody down the road, and that is a map that gets us back on track with a fairness and a toss-up Senate, a toss-up Assembly, and make sure that the legislators that get elected earn their spot with the voters and answer to the voters. And we submitted a map that I really feel comfortable with that does just that. It is not a guarantee for one party or the other to get the majorities.
No, and of the 7 parties that submitted maps, we talked to Professor Sam Wong yesterday from the Princeton Gerrymandering Project and noted that while the maps from Law Forward and from Governor Evers might have gone the furthest in terms of putting balance back toward competitive races, the map that you and the other Senate Democrats turned in was actually a little bit closer to some of the Republican maps, which made me wonder aloud if your map is the one most likely to be chosen, because it looks like it is, finding the middle ground in this issue.
Yeah, in fact, Pat, there were those in our side of the argument that were even a little perturbed that we didn't go further than we did. But I really believe that we needed to have something that the Supreme Court could take as a model for us. And it's really just the beginning. You got to remember that this is just putting us back on track, so that from this point on, we need to adopt a new way we choose maps by 2031 and get this thing right.
Well, and reform is really the name of the game, reform overall, to have these competitive races. And this is not a surprise coming from you as somebody who had to work as hard as you did to win election in a Republican-leaning district. You have to have all these conversations with people about trying to find middle ground wherever possible, which takes us to this notion of changing the way that we vote and how that could maybe break the stranglehold of, the two-party system on our elections. So talk to me for a minute about these proposals for Final Five primaries and for ranked choice voting. Do you want to start by telling me why you're even embracing any kind of a change like this?
Well, see, because Pat, as we talk about the maps and gerrymandering, that's just one step. We need. There is not one single silver bullet that's going to save democracy, as we talk about a lot. So this is, this is just another step, and we need to. So I just like to stress that Final Five voting is just what the phrase means. It's the final 5 people chosen in the primary, or candidates chosen in the primary, that make it to the general election, and that's when ranked choice voting takes place. We were bombarded in Senate hearing with out of state lobbyists who came in to warn people, oh my God, it's a terrible idea, ranked choice voting. It's confusing for people. And, they gave examples. For instance, one case where there were 35 candidates on the ballot and people had to rank 35 candidates. Well, that's not what we're talking about. We're talking about entirely different, they actually made our case because we're talking about a primary that's open primary. You choose one, you make one choice in the primary, and then the top 5 move on to the general election, and then you rank those 5, and your vote is going to count throughout the process if you actually choose 1 through 5.
I want to go back to the notion of the primary field, because I'm sure people right now say, well, how often do you have 5 or more candidates in a primary? And I would contend the answer is, well, probably not that much, because like one candidate tends to be the preferred of one party, maybe 2 candidates, 3 at most. Whereas if you had something that's much more open, where you don't have to be the favorite of party bosses, either Democratic or Republican, you can just make your own best case, and that might encourage more people to run for office. And then again, you vote for one in the primary, and then the top 5 go on to the general, where you then, in those cases in November, you'd rank those 5 candidates 1 through 5. You don't have to rank all of them, but then tell me if I'm doing this right, Jeff. You after everybody's voted and put their rankings, whoever comes in 5th after the first time you count all the votes, they're eliminated. And all those voters, you then look at who do they choose as their second choice and allocate those votes accordingly. And you keep going until somebody has actual majority support. And that's how important is that, to have a final winner that has a degree of majority support?
I think that's really important. And your first point is exactly the case that I make all the time, Pat. It's going to encourage more people to step up and run for election. You know how it is to talk to really qualified and passionate people and try to convince them that they should run for office. And they say, well, what's the use? It's as much a problem with voters. Why should they vote? What's the use? Right? So I think we're going to get greater participation in both running for office and in voting when you have a system like this.
What we have here is there are people who are very proud Democrats and very proud Republicans, dues-paying members of their local parties. It's not that anybody doesn't want to be Democratic or Republican anymore. But what do we always hear, Jeff, in some of these races? Oh, so-and-so is the anointed candidate. This is the one the party leaders want. And this enables everyday folks who are Democratic, Republican, Independent, Libertarian, Green, whatever the case may be, to get in and make their own best case. There's still going to be Republicans and Democrats, but I would contend you've got a group of people who are then going to talk to each other across the aisle better once they get elected.
And one thing the parties will find out is that they're going to have that hidden gem that they didn't realize was out there, who's going to step up, and they're going to be glad they didn't have this chosen anointed candidate out there. It's the harder a person has to work to get elected. Of course, I have to, maybe pat my own back here, but the harder you have to work to get elected, the more likely you're going to be a good representative of the people you're serving.
Do I understand correctly that this is much like the smoking ban was for us, way back when? Is this a fairly nonpartisan, bipartisan thing? Are there clearly Democrats and Republicans both for and against this?
There is. That is really true. I think even in the committees, I was impressed by the questions that were asked. Obviously, there were 1 or 2 that were set against it, and there were 1 or 2 that were, I have to think about this. I might have to think about this, and I think that's really an important step. And Pat, too, you don't get things done in one session or maybe 2 sessions. It takes sometimes a big idea like this, a few go rounds before people really rally around it. I mean legislators.
I got to say though, and I hope some of my old colleagues don't take this the wrong way. There's something downright refreshing at times when an issue doesn't, go along neat party lines, and you can build those coalitions across the aisle where you still have your party values, but some issues don't lend themselves to that. And it's actually really refreshing. And I think the voters would like to see a bit more of that as well. State Senator Jeff Smith from the Eau Claire County town of Brunswick. Thank you very much for getting up early with us. I know you got a busy day ahead at the Capitol, but good to see you again. We'll talk again soon.
Yeah. Thank you, Pat. Have a good one.
All right. You as well. Coming up next, Todd Allbaugh from the conveniently named Todd Allbaugh Show to wrap up things on a Wednesday morning here on Up North News Radio. Back in just a bit.
You're listening to the Shaw, WAUK.
If you're looking forward to getting out on the bay,
Mr. Allbaugh, how was your audio
Patrick
today?
John Kreitlow. Hi.
Jerome, thank you. But
Jerome. All right, that's right.
That's right. Wow, you look good. You sound good.
Well,
what's
even
the
a blind
problem?
squirrel. Right? I don't know.
Okay.
Oh man, you're gonna be so excited! It's another Bengals song. It's been
Morning,
Bengals
Greg.
songs. It's Good Morning, Todd. 30 seconds back.
Greg is a Bengals hater.
I am not at all. You take that back, Patrick. Jermaine
Jerome
Jackson. Quite low.
Jermaine Jackson. All right, here we go. All right, here. I like that despite trashing the Bengals all morning for Susanna Hoff's birthday, Greg is still happy to dance along when the music comes up.
You know what? I'm going to go ahead and listen to this whole episode again, and I will try to find one moment where I'm trashing the Bengals. I would never trash them. They're an amazing pop group led by Susanna Hoffs, who's still recording and writing today. Whatever.
Great. It's Greg's second day back from vacation, and we're still getting into the rhythm and the flow here. So we'll get him back.
Oh, hi,
Don't worry.
Todd.
Yeah, see what I mean? All right. Good morning, Mr. Allbaugh. How are you?
I'm well. Greg, welcome back. Pat, great to see you. They got, for those watching on the stream on Facebook and Twitter and whatnot, a new logo. It looks fantastic for the show. Congrats.
Yeah, we're rebranding. I guess is what it is. I don't know. You were saying something yesterday about in the studio there in Madison. Was there some new artwork or new show logos?
Oh yeah,
things like that?
Rebecca, our graphics marketing person, got a new soundboard. It's to absorb the sound in Mr. Zomer or the production studio. So so he actually has some artwork behind him now. So yeah,
we got some stuff here too.
Right? Yeah,
Yes.
Rebecca did all that behind Greg, so it looks fantastic.
There
Nicely
you
done,
go.
Rebecca, and the marketing team, Jorge, everybody.
Well, again, that's a nice looking one too. As Greg's showing all around the studio there. I'm looking forward to seeing that later this week. Finally getting inside the palatial studios of the Shaw and WAUK.
Palatial.
To see where all the magic happens, and to finally meet the legend Jane Matnair after listening to her on radio for decades.
You've never met her?
Not in person. I'm going to be a little starstruck.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, the first time I went to Waukesha was about a week before our show went on the air, and Kristen Bry was there, of course, doing As Goes Wisconsin with Jane, and Earl Ingram was finishing up his show. And I walked in, and the Waukesha studio had some vandalism, and so I was sent down to get this, be the security guard, and to just watch the door. And so I walked in, and I brought donuts. I thought, well, this would be nice. I'll bring donuts just to say I'm sorry and cheer people up. So and Earl comes out from his show, and he looks at the donuts, and he goes, "Oh, this is great." He goes, "So why are you here?" And I said, "Well, they sent me down to be the security." And he laughed, and he goes, "No, seriously, why are you here?" And that's how I met Earl. Yeah, and Kristen and Jane. So yeah.
I know. Well, I finally get to shake Mr. Bach's hand, in person. We haven't done that yet either. So that's the thing about this whole work from home, statewide network spread out. I've been working with some people through Courier Newsroom for 4 years now, and we're all over the country. And the one or two times that the Courier Newsroom folks, much like the Civic Media folks, have tried to get a lot of people in a room, what happened after that? COVID and other crud ended up spreading. So I've been very happy to stay up here in Chippewa Falls for now. But hey, today on the show, of course, you'll be talking with Trygve Olsen from the Lincoln Project. Mm-hmm. And I don't know where you were planning to start the show, but based on what I saw this morning, I can't wait to thank him for the video spoof that they created over people who are sharing this video about how God made Trump, because they took Paul Harvey's legendary God Made a Farmer and they tried to basically pervert it into, and God made Trump. And the Lincoln Project has responded with its own ad, and you'd swear it's Paul Harvey because AI is so good these days. And it's called "And God Made a Dictator." And if you haven't look online for it, it is so good.
Yeah, that's the work of Rick Wilson over at the Lincoln Project. I know he and Trygve worked on that a little bit together. I have not seen it yet. I only saw the first opening 10 seconds. I got to watch the entire thing. But they do great work. And I think that we'll talk with you as well, Pat. Assuming you'll join us, be so kind as to do that. We always appreciate it.
I guess. Sure.
Oh, thank you. But it's no surprise, obviously, that Trump won Iowa. It's only 100,000 people. It's a small sample. But to me, what's more interesting and important is the Republicans, like Marco Rubio, like Mike Lee of Utah, all these folks lining up and endorsing Trump already. And for all intent and purposes, the Republican primary is probably over unless Nikki Haley can somehow surprise North Carolina and in New Hampshire and then pull off a couple other ones. So, and I think if you listen to Trump on his after he was declared the victor in Iowa, he sounded a little more normal. And quite frankly, that concerns me because I think that a lot of folks, including a lot of mainstream media, are going to begin to once again normalize Trump. But I think it's important just to continue to point out the facts. We don't have to make anything up, right? Just tell, hey, look, 91 indictments. The guy's a convicted rapist. The guy was part of an insurrection as declared by Liz Cheney and Adam Kinzinger, former Republicans. Go right down the list. I think it's just as we move forward through 2024, let's stick to the facts and remind people what the choice probably is going to be in November, Trump versus Biden.
And by the way, let's not forget how this all got started with Republicans saying they were against Trump, but then quickly taking a knee and kissing the ring. Scott Walker. He was, supposed to be the golden boy, but Trump comes in and Walker's presidential campaign lasted 71 days or something like that. And when he got out, he was warning people saying, we need to reduce this field, because otherwise Donald Trump is going to go right through it. Well, of course he did. And there was Scott Walker right with everybody else quick to bless him rather than to continue to work to purge their party of, folks who would be that, corrupt, immoral, and anti-small d Democratic.
And this is going to be the question for Republicans, whether it's in Lake Wissota or Antigo or Richland Center or Wausau, wherever, is if you're voting Republican for your district attorney or your sheriff, I get that. But are those really the same kind of Republicans as Scott Walker, as you just said, or Derek Van Orton, who spent the week down in Iowa campaigning for Donald Trump and embracing this guy? Oh, look, Derek Van Orton was at the insurrection. He put photos on his Facebook page.
Derek Van Orton is talking about how Trump is going to be looking out for your family the way he looks out for his. And people right away posted, which one? Which of Trump's families? With his first wife? With his second wife? With his third? I mean, who thinks he's Mr. Family Values over here? Well, obviously nobody, but they're trying to talk a good game and fool just enough folks. So needless to say,
we shall see.
More than a little bit of fodder for Mr. Allbaugh and his program coming up noon to 2 all across the Civic Media Radio Network. And then I'll see you down there sometime on Friday as well. Looking forward to it.
On Thursday, actually, we're I think we're going to be on
I'm going to see you Thursday at that conference. That's right.
Tomorrow,
I'm joining you in Milwaukee.
Yeah, looking forward to that. Live from Milwaukee is Pat and Todd.
Oh, boy, they just let us go everywhere, don't they? All right. Have a great day. We'll see you at noon.
You guys too. Thank you.
All
Bye-bye.
right. Thank you, Greg, and thanks to all of you for being here again tomorrow. Dr. Kristen Lyerly will continue her series of talking to women who are stepping up and trying to make a difference in their community, including Sarah Kayeski of Lodi, who's making a run for public office. Luke Mathers and Joe Zepecki are all part of it as well. Thanks for being part of what we do today. Have a wonderful Wednesday. We'll see you back here tomorrow morning at 6.
Les Paul Parkway or